Hi, James. Welcome to the More Than Sober Summit. I'm so excited that you're here, and I'm so excited because you are a go-getter in everything that I have watched of yours. As I get deeper into your videos, I'm like, you are such an amazing person, and you have so much to say, and I'm just so excited you're here.
I mean, that's a lot of pressure, Britni.
You literally, I
Bring it.
looked at your videos and I was like, dang, there's so much that I want to talk to him about.
Well, let's get it started. Let's do this.
All right. Okay, well, let's just start at the beginning. Let's go back to the beginning. What kind of was your family life like in the beginning?
Yeah, well, my parents split when I was in 8th grade. And it was a weird thing because I remember my parents bringing me and my brother in, sitting us down and being like, hey, if we got a divorce, who would you go with? And I'm a 13-year-old. So I'm like, I don't know. My brother had some medical problems that he went through with my mom, which is a whole nother story. But I was 13. So I was like, okay, dad, that's kind of the age where a young boy is like, I want my dad to see me. Whereas my brother was at the age where he's like, I want mom. And so we were just like, I'll go with dad. And my brother was like, I'll go with mom. And then a couple of weeks later, we were looking for a new home. And so there was no fighting. I never really saw my parents fight, which is not always a good thing, because then as an adult, you have to learn how to fight in a relationship and how to, play fairly. And so I went with my dad all throughout high school. My mom, I later on found out that, she never really wanted children. So that was a whole couple of years of therapy that I had to go through to accept my mom as a woman who was just trying to figure it out. Right. Like we oftentimes look at our parents as like, you should have done this, you should have done that. And now you grow up, like I'm 42 now. And I'm like, wow, we don't know anything. We have nothing figured out. We're just trying to get through life without looking too stupid. And so my mom and I, we have a great relationship. My father, he passed away a couple of years ago, but during high school, he was an alcoholic. He was an alcoholic for most of my life until he stopped about a decade before he passed. And but again, he would never beat me. He never, he was just kind of emotionally absent. Alcohol just kind of takes the emotion out of everything. You don't feel anything. And so he always provided, but I was lonely, except for my coaches, which kind of leads into what I do for a living, in that my coaches raised me. I needed that strong male figure in my life. And I found that in coaches. And I had some female coaches too, that kind of replaced what I wish my mom would have been. But I think the biggest struggle with that was every time I had a girlfriend, like her mom became my mom. And so the breakup was like double as bad, because I was like,
you're losing the whole
cookies.
family. Yes.
That's exactly right. And so that was kind of my upbringing as far as family goes. But you can see people be successful with a good upbringing and then successful with a bad upbringing, but you can see the opposite, right? So I look at my upbringing as a catalyst to help other people instead of being a victim. You play this victor, like this hero of your own life. And you look at all the stuff you went through growing up, and you can say, okay, that harmed me and I'm going to harm others. Or you can be like, that harmed me and I'm going to help others. And, I picked that up from some mentors that I've had over the years, and it served me pretty well.
It did. Well, let me go back to your dad for a second. So in one of your videos, you tell like the transformation of your dad. And so I want to just go back. Yes, I want to go back to that moment of just like why it is possible, right? Like the
change is possible.
Yes.
And we live in a society that doesn't really believe that, right? Like you can't change your mind. You can't overcome an addiction. You can't become a new identity, a new person, because people's perspective of you, sometimes they hold on to that forever. And that's frustrating, even in friendships or relationships, romantic, like it sucks, because a couple of years later, you run into the person that you offended or that you hurt, and they're still hurt, but you're like, no, I did the work. I went to therapy. I went to church, God has restored me and I'm not that person anymore. And they're like, yeah, you are. It's like, okay. I mean, I love you.
You can't change everyone's minds for sure.
No. But my grandpa always used to say, like, you can't change the people around you, but you can change the people who surround you.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing for me. And I didn't take that advice until, my 20s, where it was like, okay, I'm going to stop trying to change people. I'm going to change me. And what's interesting about that, Britni, is that when you change how you view somebody, it kind of changes, because a self-fulfilling prophecy is like, that person's a piece of crap, or it's like that person has a lot of stuff going on, and that person's a great mom, or, that guy's a great, worker or whatever. And so you look for the positive, and that somehow changes the relationship.
It does. It does. Looking for the positive in people and in life is so essential.
Sure.
That gratitude list, that positivity, it's so essential to be able to keep going and not kind of be stuck. Yeah. Okay. So you have all this, you have all your coaches. What happens after that?
Well, okay. So I don't think I answered the question about my dad. And so I just want to go back real quick in that about 10 years before he passed, he met a woman named Phyllis, a wonderful woman. And she basically just didn't put up with his crap. Like, it's the first woman that was like, no, you will not speak to me that way. You will not treat me that way. We're going to church. You need Jesus. And I saw the transformation. I saw him stop drinking. I saw him stop gambling, which was the impetus for my parents originally getting a divorce. I saw him become a kinder man. And I would get these text messages from him that I still have on my phone 6 years later, of just, hey, I'm proud of you. I love you. And I'm like, man, I'm in my 30s. I didn't know how badly I needed to hear my dad say that.
Yeah.
And some people never get that. And so I was working at a sports academy at my dream job in Florida, and he got sick. He had a stroke, and I would come visit him every other week. And then I just realized, I was like, this is a man who changed. Like, we like to think, like I said, no one changes, but he did. And it gave me the strength to be like, okay, what do I need to change in my life? Because you don't want to waste those stories. You don't want to waste those experiences. Right. And so I moved to Texas, and I got 8 months with him. And, when he passed, 2 months before he passed, he said, you're going to go to this church because that's your spiritual father. And you need to find yourself a Texas woman, because they don't make them like they do in Texas. And the next day he lost his ability to speak. And so I would just sit next to him and just kind of be with him. And that kind of formed me to who I am. But my brother also passed away in my early 20s, and he had a huge drug addiction, meth, cocaine, alcohol, but he had a lot of medical problems when he was younger. And so what happened was he went to prison. I went to visit him, and he told me, the last conversation I ever had with him, he was just like, Jimmy, I've gone to your practices as a coach. I've seen you coach. And he wasn't allowed to play sports, physical reasons. He goes, if you would have been my coach, I wouldn't be behind bars. And so keep coaching. Like, they need you. We cried, we embraced, we got in trouble because we embraced. You're not supposed to do that in jail. But he got out a few weeks later, and then he passed. The drugs just overtook him. But he also changed in that he went and got an ID. Like, he tried to get his license. He got a job. He had never done that stuff before. And so I'm surrounded by these experiences of people who are set in their ways, but then deciding to change. Like Tony Robbins always says, like, change doesn't happen over time. It just happens in a moment. Like, one moment you decide, not another minute, not another second, I'm not doing this anymore. But it doesn't change for the people around you as fast.
It does not.
They hold on to the past. You did this, you did that. You're like, I know. That was terrible. I can't believe I did that. And you can't blame your addiction, because you got to take ownership for it. Right. And so that conversation with Monty was the impetus for me to just really be into coaching. And for years, I was a coach, and I was a personal trainer. And I realized about 10 years as a personal trainer that I'm a therapist. Like, I'm sets and reps, like, they don't care about that. Like, I remember there'd be times where I'd spend an hour preparing like a workout, like, all right, I'm really going to work her out hard. She's a stay-at-home mom, but she wants to play soccer on the weekends. And she'd show up, and I'm like, oh, you just need to go for a walk. You just need to get some stuff off your chest. And she would pay her full fee just to have somebody to talk to.
This is the same thing I did with counseling. I mean, I used to do hair. That's what I used to do all the time, do hair. And finally I realized they're paying me to be their therapist. Why don't I go to school and get my master's degree in counseling?
100%.
So it's the 100%. Same thing. Yeah.
And hair, doing hair, working out the body, like that's, I've always believed that, like, it's more important to have the connection. Right. Like, you can impress people with, like, all right, this works your biceps and your triceps and your lats. And it's like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to shut up and listen. And
So
so
powerful.
people really need that.
Yeah. Okay. So you talked about your dream job a little bit. So so you're like the epitome of a success story for someone who lived with alcohol around them. It was in your genetics. Your brother also went down the road of addiction, but you are here and you stepped out of that and you said, that's not going to be you. And you are a success story. So I always say that Habakkuk 2:2 says, write down the vision and put it somewhere where you can clearly see it, and then take those action steps. So what did that look like for you?
It literally looks like my mirror full of Post-its.
Yeah.
Like I have all my goals, things that I've accomplished, because you got to remember that when you fail, it's not an end result. Like it's not over. And and I teach mental resiliency to athletes of all ages and coaches. And when you fail, it's like, all right, so you failed. All right, next, like what's next? But then when you succeed, it's like, okay, cool. Well, we still have to start over. And so on my mirror, I have things that I've accomplished in the past to remind me that I'm not a loser.
Yeah.
To remind me that like, because we forget about that. We celebrate the milestones. Yeah, I got my master's, and oh yeah, I got this job and I got married or kid, whatever. And then something bad happens. You're like, man, I'm terrible. It's like, no, you're not. You just made a bad decision, and you've got some consequences that you're gonna have to deal with. But you're not a terrible person. And so my mirror is full. I got it from David Goggins. He Can't Hurt Me, his book.
Yeah.
And if you're looking to listen to that book, just know he curses a lot. If you can get through that, some nuggets in there.
There's some really good stuff. Okay.
Really good nuggets. Yeah. And so for me, that's what it looks like, where it's, I have to remind myself to celebrate what I have accomplished and where I did fail. And then also be like, okay, I'm ready to succeed. Which I think a lot of people are preparing for failure, or you can prepare to succeed. Now I coached football in Texas, high school football, which is, we prayed before this, and, we're both believers. Football is also a religion in Texas. And I use it as a way to teach the lessons that I wish my dad would have taught me when I was in high school. Because all those kids, some of them have fathers, but they have coaches, and they look at their coaches as a father figure. Yeah. And so I learned from these kids. And even when I coached one year, we went defeated. We were 0-10. Like we were 0-10. We lost every single game, and there were reasons out of our control. But the next year, every single kid came back, and we went undefeated. Dang. Like that's amazing. We were in the same league, same rules, everything was the same. They went 0-10. 4 games, Britni, check this out. 4 games into this, I go look, or one of the kids at practice, halfway through practice, we huddle up, and it was a girl. She was my center. She says, Coach, are we going to win a game this year? And I had one of these moments when I was a kid. I watched this TV show called Saved by the Bell, which kind of ages me a little bit, but this character on there named, do you know Saved by the Bell?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Yeah. Fantastic. So Zach would like do a timeout. Like he'd put his hands in a timeout, and everything would stop. And that's that kind of moment I had. It's like, all right, do I lie to Ellen and tell her, oh yeah, we're going to win, or she can handle the truth? So I looked her dead in the face and I said, Ellen, no, we're not going to win a game this year. The teams are bigger. They're more experienced. They're a year older, which is huge in middle school. They're just, we're not going to win. And she's like, well, what do we do? And I go, well, success is not always on the scoreboard. Success can be in performance. Success can be in effort. So here's what I told him. I said, if you decide you don't want to play, because some of these kids were actually like a lot bigger than my team. Yeah. If you're scared or whatever, just know, like, no hard feelings. I love you, whether you're on the team or not. Every kid came back the next day, and we redefined success. So I started with Ellen. I go, Ellen, what is success to you? She goes, no fumbled snaps. I go, okay, at the end of the game, I'm going to ask you if you won. And if you had no fumbled snaps, you'll say yes. And then go home and tell your parents to ask you that too, right? Because parents can ruin everything. But then other kids were like, I'm not going to miss any tackles. I'm not going to drop any balls. And so at the end of the game, we lost every game. I would ask, like, who won? And kids would raise their hand and they tell me. And so we would celebrate it. Yeah. So then we're at the banquet, and I'm teared up. I'm kind of a passionate guy, if you can't tell, but I was like, all right, raise your hand if you had fun this year. And every kid raised their hand. And I was like, So I took a step further and I said, stand up if you're going to play next year. And every kid stood up. And they came back the next year in the same league and dominated.
Dang. That was their training ground. Literally, that was their
We
training
don't
ground
let
for the
kids
next season.
fail. Like, you know, we make everything all foam covered and, you know, and just shower them with compliments and stuff.
Yeah.
And if the kid's like, am I any good? And you're just like, you know what? You're not.
Yeah.
But you can be. You can be good if you go and you do the work. And so those kids got a great education, and that's been about 10 years now. And I've been in contact with some of them, and they look at that as one of the best experiences of their youth.
Wow.
Going 0-10, not undefeated, winning the championship the next year. It was the season before that they
man. I mean, in recovery, we do that too. Like, we just stay, if it's not, we're not doing 100% all the way out there, then we feel defeated. But there is those little action steps that we can take, and that's winning. And I call it leveling up. Like, that's leveling you up to that big win. And all those little victories are huge.
Yeah.
But
you know, well, I was gonna say, in recovery, one of the biggest monsters that you have to overcome is like calling the daughter that you haven't talked to in 20 years.
Yeah.
Or apologizing to the business partner that you bankrupted.
Yeah.
Like, these are serious things that alcohol takes over, and it just ruins your life. And there is a comeback story.
Yeah.
And when you make that phone call and she curses you out and says, never call me again, that's still a win.
It's a win.
Because you may not have opened up the door, but you at least grabbed the handle and started wiggling the little doorknob, right? So, or, you know, you may not ever be able to pay back the business partner, but you reached out and you said, I was wrong. And I know you'll never forgive me, but just know that, like, I'm very sorry.
Yeah. And that's internally changing you to be that better person for the next person. So that's a huge win. If you can let go of that ego and you can actually step out and be like, hey, I was in the wrong, man, that bondage just breaks right off of you.
Oh, the ego. Yeah. Yep. I've had some battles with my ego for sure.
Man. So, okay, you tell an amazing also story about someone that you saw in Starbucks, about them zipping up the thing. And
the zipper phenomena.
Okay, so wait, I heard you say this. I'm gonna let you tell a story, but it kind of reminded me of, so I'm trying to get people in recovery to step out into their full potential. Like, what does that look like for them? It's not just recovery. It's not just being sober. Like, God has so many more blessings for you. So, but this is how I see God work with me. He hands me something and then I have to do it. He walks alongside me. So when you said that story, it was kind of like how God works with me. Like, he taught me how to zip up the zipper, but I got to do it. And he's going to watch me do it. And he's going to be there for me, but he's not going to do it for me. So it kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah. Well, so I'll tell a story real quick. I was in Starbucks. Well, I was in Starbucks and I saw this little kid. You know, I got my coffee or whatever, and I was putting some creamer in it. And this little kid was like trying to zip up his jacket and he couldn't do it. And mom is standing there with his hot chocolate and, you know, her latte, because they went before me, so I know what they drink. And she's just standing there and he's like, I can't do it. And he's like struggling. And she's like, yeah, you can. He's like, no, I can't. And she puts the coffees down and then just stands there. She doesn't help him, but she's there with him. And he's like, I can't do it. And like, I saw a tear, and I'm just kind of like pretending not to watch, but I'm totally watching.
Totally watching. You know the whole story. Okay.
And then he does it and he zips it up. He goes, Mom, look what I did. And she's like, I'm so proud of you. Grabs the coffees and then they walk out. And I thought, that is parenting right there. Because instead of saving her precious 30 seconds and letting her son learn the lesson, she could have just put the coffee down. Here, come on. Let's go. Zip it up. Come on, let's go. Yeah. And then he's just like, okay, cool. When I have a problem, mom will solve it. Awesome. But you know, this kid was maybe 7, 8 years old. No, probably younger, probably 6. And he learned that lesson, and he'll never remember that.
I know,
but he'll know it deep inside.
Yeah. So when I wrote my book, God literally gave me the title of the book and the chapters. And then I started writing, and it was like I couldn't hear from God anymore. And I was like, oh, I can't do this, you know? And God's like, no, you have everything that you need. I've already given you everything that you need. Yes. Let's do this. And it was my job to now take the action steps in the vision that he gave me. Sure. So that's what that story reminded me of. Like,
that's awesome.
You know, the mom had already taught him how to zip up the zipper. She wasn't just leaving him like, hey, you don't know how to do it. No, he knew.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. He
So
knew.
I love that
And
story.
now he's got a little bit of self-respect, a little self-efficacy. He can do it on his own.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So I'm super passionate about health and fitness and how we take care of our bodies, how we hear from the Holy Spirit, because we have to be clear-headed. We have to have our bodies in check while we're eating, everything. So in recovery, we do so much damage to our bodies. So I just wanted to get your perspective on like, what's the starting steps to taking care of our bodies after a life of substance abuse?
I mean, first it starts with the decision, right? It starts with
Yeah.
like, okay, no more. I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
People lionize fitness. Like,
Mhm.
I stay at home. I'm an entrepreneur. Like I run my own business. And so I can run my own schedule. And so I can be at the gym for 90 minutes. I can sit in
Mhm.
the sun for half an hour and do a cryotherapy or, an
I
ice,
love it. I
right?
love
But
the sauna. Let's just note that for a second. He said sauna and cryotherapy. Love both of those.
oh yeah. Yeah. It's almost every day. And if the
Yeah.
cryotherapy is not open, I jump in the outdoor pool and walk across. And,
Oh, that's
it
great.
sucks every time. It doesn't get easier, but you
Yeah.
get stronger. So you're like,
Mhm.
I got this. But not everybody has time for that. And not everybody knows
Mhm.
what to do. And
Yeah.
so just getting to the gym and hopping on the treadmill. Oh no, don't walk on the treadmill. It's like, you know what? Start where you got to start.
Yeah.
And if it's 30 minutes on a treadmill and you put that incline up a little bit and you go to like 3.5 on the speed, you're going to break a sweat.
Yeah.
And then you're not going to be so sore the next day that you can't walk.
Mhm.
So instead of going and then, getting some men's health magazine or women's health magazine and just being like, this is the workout I'm going to do, and then you can't walk for a week, that's not going to motivate you to go back.
Yeah.
So make the decision, plan your day around that. I'm going to be there for 30 minutes. That's okay. There's no like time, like this, it has to be 60 minutes. No, it doesn't have to be 60 minutes. Just get there and break a sweat.
Yeah.
One thing I'll tell people is like, find somebody who looks like they know what they're doing, and then just be an exercise behind them. Like literally just follow them around the gym. Don't make it weird,
That's a
but
good. Don't make it weird. I was gonna say
yeah,
that's a
they're
good
like
idea though.
following you. No, don't do that. But just be like, okay, so he's doing that. All right, cool. I'm gonna do that. And then, oh yeah, I like what she's doing. I'm gonna do that. And then you're good. Like it doesn't have to be a
Mhm.
program. Eventually, you'll want a program because you're starting to see some gains. You're starting to see maybe you're feeling a little bit better. Maybe you take a yoga class and all of a sudden you can touch your feet. Like start somewhere. And
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how small, just start.
Yeah. So why do we want to do that? What's the importance of exercise and taking care of our bodies?
Well, when you exercise, people who don't exercise think that it's going to take energy away, when it actually has the opposite effect. It
Mhm.
gives you more energy. It makes your body more efficient.
Right.
So, when I'm at the gym and I'm working out and someone comes up to me, they're like, "Hey, what are you eating? Like, how are you? What are you fit?" I'm like, "It's a daily discipline. I'm here every day. Sometimes I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know
Yeah.
I'm going to do something." And I just start. And so that is therapy for me. And I believe that personal development starts with fitness, right? Like
Mhm.
it's kind of like the gateway to personal development. When you go and you're starting to work it out, you can't help but be like, man, maybe I should make some other better decisions, right? Instead
Yeah.
of, maybe I'm not going to stop. I don't have to. There was a Wendy's in the parking lot of my gym growing up.
Nuh-uh.
And I
Oh
couldn't
God.
believe it. Like people would go work out and they'd be like, I deserve this. I'm like, that's why you're still overweight.
Yeah.
It's not about deserving it. It's about like,
Mhm.
this is your body.
This
And
is
if
your
you've
holy temple. Like this is
yeah, if you've
for us
already
to
like
take care.
destroyed it because
Mhm.
of, alcohol or drugs or whatever, like now's the time to restart.
Mhm.
Like the body is resilient. And
Yes.
if you haven't done any permanent damage, which most people haven't,
Mhm.
you stop smoking and your lungs come back.
Yeah.
You stop drinking and your gut goes away. You
Yeah.
stop eating sugar and you feel better. And so, coffee, people are like, I need to have coffee. Well, coffee doesn't wake you up. It just turns off the receptors that say
Yeah.
you're tired. You're still tired. You're still
Yeah.
not optimal,
Mhm.
but you don't feel tired. So you have some coffee. Right now, I love coffee. I
I
literally just,
love coffee too, but I don't drink it a lot, but it's so good. That's
yeah.
my like, I deserve this today is my coffee.
Yeah, no, I love coffee, but yeah, it's the importance is really, it's just, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know how good
Mhm.
it's going to make you feel until you
Yeah.
start doing it.
Yeah.
And there's another part to it though. When you start working out and you start getting quote unquote healthy, your friends might not like that.
Mhm.
They might actually make fun of you. when you're losing pounds at the gym, oftentimes you start losing friends because now you're a mirror and you're trying to better yourself. And what do you mean you're bettering yourself? We're not good enough for you. You're going to go out and look for new friends. It's like, wait a minute, hold on. This has nothing to do with you. But these conversations have to happen. And oftentimes the people that you surround yourself with either lift you up or they keep you down. And so you have to be aware of that.
Did you notice that, like, in your coaching, when you decided to take the steps that you're taking in your business, that people also were like that too, friends or family?
My story, not really, because I've always kind of made sure I surrounded myself with people who were encouraging. I had a situation in high school where, long story short, I was a football player and I was a quarterback, and all my linemen went out bag snatching one night on Halloween, like taking candy from little kids.
Oh my gosh.
And we all got called into the office the next day. Well, I wasn't there. I was at my friend's house. And, but I was about to be suspended because these were my friends. And so the principal was like, look, you can go, but just know that, like, you are guilty by association. That if these are the people you're going to hang out with, these are the things you're eventually going to do.
Right.
And I had played football with them for years, 6-7 years. And I had to make the decision to start hanging out with different people. And that was hard, especially in high school. You have your friends and that's basically it.
Yeah.
But I made that decision and I've never really looked back. And so I'm always surrounding myself with people. I want to be the dumbest guy in the room. I want to be the poorest guy in the room. I want to be the most out of shape guy in the room. And a lot of times I am. So,
yeah, that's so good. Is there anything besides cryotherapy and sauna that you love? What's your go-to thing?
I play Fortnite with some former athletes.
Yeah.
And it's like once they graduate high school, they're allowed to add me on Xbox. And I'm terrible. I'm not good. I don't really care about it, but it's great time. It's great, like, bonding time. So I really like that. But yeah, I already do what I love. I love working out. I love feeling good. I love sharing stories.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so I've kind of designed a life to do the things that I like to do.
I love that. Is there anything else you would tell people in recovery that are trying to really step out into their full potential?
I mean, it sucks. Like if you're in the clutches of alcoholism or drug abuse, you might think, you know what, I'm good. Well, good is the enemy of great. Like, life can be a lot better. And it's got to get a lot worse before it gets a lot better, because you've got to change your surroundings. There's a lot of there's more good police officers than bad, but the system that they're in encourages a lot to go bad, the environment that they're in. And so you have to change the environment. It's not always the person. And when you're going through recovery, you're going to have to change your environment. If you go back to the old neighborhood that you grew up in, if you go back to the old places that you used to hang out, they're doing the same thing. And if you want to fit in, you have to do that stuff. There's no getting around it. You're not going to go proselytize at the bar. You'd be like, look, I found Jesus, so everybody come with me. Like, this is the way. And they're going to be like, sit down and have a drink or leave. Right. And so you do have to make some tough decisions, and it's not going to be easy. And some of the conversations that you're going to have with the people that you hurt, those are going to be really, really difficult conversations.
Yeah. I love that. Well, thank you so much for being here today. And thank you for all your wisdom. Where do we find you?
JamesLeath.com. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I don't spend a lot of time on Twitter, but mostly on Instagram and Facebook. And it's kind of where I hang out. So yeah, I'd love to talk to anybody that wants to chat.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Britni.
Thank you.